Welcome to Crosstalk. On this program, we have decided over the next few weeks to focus on serious incidents of crime. Given national interest in these issues and the fact that the crime rate appears to be spiraling in the country, the level of brutality is also appalling. And also, what we are trying to focus on our future programs is to find out if law and order has broken down, if law enforcement authorities can no longer enforce the law, and where does this leave people like you and me, law-abiding citizens. Tonight we focus on the recent murder of a customs officer, Sujith Perera, and the alleged abduction and disappearance of another customs officer, Anura Weerawansa. With me in the studio today, I have eminent lawyers who are equally confounded at the level, as I said, of crime that is happening, at certain incidents that took place outside their doorstep, as it were. With me is Mr. Bandula Vijayasinghe, who is Secretary for the Sri Lanka Bar Association. I think I should tell my viewers that Mr. Vijayasinghe took Anura Weerawansa, the customs officer, to the residence of Mr. Hemantha Warnakulasuriya, who hardly needs an introduction, who is a well-known criminal lawyer. Mr. Weerawansa disappeared outside the gates of Mr. Warnakulasuriya's home in Borella a week ago. I also have Mr. Kumara Chapa Bandara, who is a journalist at the Ravia newspaper. Mr. Srinath Perera, who is a well-known President's Counsel, and also who personally knew the murdered customs officer, Mr. Sujith Perera, who represented him in many cases in the customs department. I will get to that later. And Mr. Warnakulasuriya, who of course should I say was not really a witness, but who was to consult, or rather hold a consultation with Mr. Anura Weerawansa, but before he could do so, Mr. Weerawansa disappeared from outside his gates at Norris Canal Road, Borella. To begin with, Mr. Vijayasinghe, tell us, how did you get involved in this case?
In fact, Anura Weerawansa telephoned me about 1 week back. And he said, he came and met me firstly with his sister, and he said police is looking for him for the Sujith Perera's murder. Then I suggest you must consult the senior counsel, and he went and met the counsel whom I suggest. Then thereafter, with his instruction, Anura Weerawansa telephoned me and said, I got the instruction from the senior counsel for me to go and go to CID to get himself arrested there. Then what happened on the 8th, Anura Weerawansa telephoned me again, said, shall we meet Mr. Hemantha?
If I can interrupt there, Mr. Vijayasinghe, now Mr. Weerawansa wanted to hand himself or surrender to the police.
Yeah, he himself, he suggested that he should surrender.
Did he intimate to you that he was innocent of the murder of Sujith Perera?
Of course, yes. That is the reason why he said, I want to get myself surrendered. And he has taken that decision having discussed the senior counsel. Then I said, okay, if you want to go to CID with a criminal lawyer, so this choice is Mr. Hemantha Warnakulasuriya. I said, you contact me tomorrow, I'll get a appointment from Mr. Warnakulasuriya. So on the 9th he telephoned me and said, did you contact Mr. Warnakulasuriya? So I said, yes, I have contacted him. We can meet Mr. Warnakulasuriya by about 12:30, so that you can decide. As actually it is for a consultation, because since I am not a criminal lawyer, so I am doing instructing work, therefore I suggest Mr. Warnakulasuriya. Then I was taking him to Mr. Warnakulasuriya. I went and stopped my jeep right opposite Mr. Warnakulasuriya's house. Then suddenly a car came and stopped behind me, and one person came to where I am driving, and Anura was seated next to me. And there another 3 people came and opened the door and took on and went off.
Did he resist?
Yes, of course, yes.
Can you recognize any of the men or the car?
I don't think. It is a matter of 4 seconds.
Okay, Mr. Warnakulasuriya, what is your assessment of this whole situation? Do you think, I think you already know that the police are saying that Mr. Weerawansa actually staged this whole drama, staged his own abduction.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, now, Frederica, the police have been saying various things at various times. This is our main problem. Now, moment when this happened, I happened to be in the magistrate's court. I got a telephone call. I immediately proceeded to my residence, and Mr. Bandula Vijayasinghe, though he is a lawyer and secretary of the Bar Association, he was in a state of shock. So then I at once presumed that the police have taken him outside my residence. That's the only conclusion that I came to as a criminal lawyer with the knowledge of how the police operates. So I thought maybe that I must get clarification on this matter. I spoke to Mr. Punyadisela, DIG. I don't know him personally.
When you say how the police operate, why you think it's normal for the police to just
No,
stage
the police,
apparent abduction
when this whole thing happened, when you described, I thought it was a police operation. I came to the irresistible conclusion, the manner in which Mr. Banduluje described this. So I thought now the police have taken, we have immediately go to that police station and present ourselves and say that he was my client and make a complaint to the officers concerned, or go to the police headquarters and make a complaint against the police officers for having abducted him. But Mr. DIG Punyadisela was not there in his seat, and his personal assistant took my message and promised to contact me back. Then later, as there was delay, I spoke to Mr. Samarathunga. Now, I know some of the senior police officers in the CID, they are very honorable people. I mean, people might say various things. Now, Mr. Samarathunga, I know personally, he at once said, Mr. Vanapala Suri, to my knowledge, he has not been taken to custody. That's the first reaction. But I will inform you, because there are 2 or 3 teams, police teams, that are operating to arrest this person. He promised to call me in 1 hour's time. Now, the natural reaction would have been to wait for 1 hour. But then I thought, now this happened in opposite my residence, then this has never happened ever before, and I thought we must immediately take some positive action. So immediately after that I telephoned the police emergency, and Mr. Adhikari took the telephone call and he recognized me. He said, I'll send someone immediately. I said some people have been abducted in front of my office, and I mentioned, I believe, Mr. Anuviyasa's name. Then we waited, there was nothing happened. For after about 10 or 15 minutes, 2 police officers walked into my residence, and they said they are from Maradana police station. I thought a car would come, I thought immediately they would take action. I mean, it is mentioned that they would, inform the other police station. There would be roadblocks, there would be people screaming with sirens coming into my place, and finally nothing happened. After 10-15, 2 police officers came. He asked, then I said, Mr. Banduluje Singh is a witness. I only can say what he told me. And Mr. Banduluje Singh, then he spoke to them, and I believe Mr. Banduluje Singh told them there's a van that was parked outside. You can question them whether they all saw the incident. Because I also asked him whether he recognized the number plate. He said no, I was in a state of shock. And actually at that time, what is happening, he thought that his life may be in danger. Supposing if there was a scuffle, if there was a shootout, he might also die, and it's quite natural. So then I thought that the police officer went outside, 2 police officers, and would have recorded his statement, and would have recorded the statement of the van driver. Nothing happened. Then he came and said, nothing happened, sir, we must now take action. I said, all right, the next thing that we can do is to go to the Maradana police station, make a statement, and from there go to the police headquarters. Because I went on the basis that this was a police operation. The police went and took him outside my residence. Then I went to the Maradana police station. There was a police officer, reserve police officer. He refused to take our statement. He said, no, I can't do this. We had to explain and say that he is a secretary of the Bar Association. Then they contacted the OIC crimes. Then we went there. He was of course very nice. In fact, he took his statement. Then he said,
the statement of Mr.
Vijay Singh. Then he said, can you keep the jeep? Mr. Vijay Singh then immediately got the jeep from his office. Is that correct? Yes. And then they said, we want to take the fingerprints. We were very happy. He said, we can keep the jeep. Though he had no vehicle, yes, we kept the jeep there so that they can, we will assist in the investigation. I promised to take him in my car. But then he got, I believe, another car, and he went to my residence, and no one came to my place
to record your statement.
Record my statement till about 8 o'clock in the night, and I thought they would come and ask even my clerks or anybody. They wouldn't have seen, but they would come and ask anyone whether they saw incident like that. Nothing happened. At about 8 o'clock, the OIC comes, and then I made a statement, and I explained. Actually I was not eyewitness. I explained I had never seen Saru once. I didn't know whether I had never seen a photograph of him. Then he said, yes, we are investigating. I told him, if the police have taken this person to custody, please inform us so that we can take other steps. right?
Yes.
Then he said, no sir, we have no information. Then what happened was, immediately after that or before that, there has been the media has come to know about it, and I believe the ITN there was a news item about the abduction, and they have also went and said that because he was taken from the custody of a lawyer, and lawyer being Mr. Bandhavijay, I believe there was a news item, there will protest of lawyers on the next day. So then some people telephoned and asked me whether that is so. I said, I know, I have heard nothing about this. But first of all, we must confirm even the protest whether the police have taken.
Yes.
And where this person is staged, because we can't just go and protest on the basis somebody has been abducted. Then, nothing happened. Then the next day, I spoke to some police officers. They pretended not to know. Then I heard a story that they are trying to say this is abduction took place, but the abduction was a creation or was planned or staged by Mr. Anura Veeravatsa himself. Now this is the story that it has not gone to the media. I heard this, that they are going to say this. Then I was little perturbed, because I was thinking, now here is the man who has been followed by the police. Here is a man who is supposed to be wanted to be questioned in connection of murder of another customs officer, and for him to think of abducting himself is I have never come across in Sri Lanka a criminal who would unless he's some person who has absolute connections with everybody. To do a thing, because normally when you are frightened, the first thing is for you to go and consult a lawyer and do what the lawyer says, or to surrender him to the police station or surrender him to the CID. So then,
Mr. Vanukula, sorry, if we are to presume that Mr. Veeravatsa was guilty of the murder of Mr. Pereira, Sujit Pereira, then don't you think that it is in his favor to actually stage an abduction and disappear like that?
Because there was no reason. Because the reason is, if Mr. Anura Veeravatsa wanted to stage an abduction, he had disappeared for 7 days. Police could not trace him. Immediately after the murder, various stories came afloat, and there were government was accused, politicians were accused, and some top people were accused, and then they also accused Mr. Veeravatsa. They thought that Mr. Veeravatsa was behind this. So then he was hiding, and then there was no reason for him to come in front of my house and get himself abducted. I know from where he came. He has gone and met Mr. Bandhavijay Singh at Halsdorf, and then from Halsdorf he came Mr. Bandhavijay Singh of the vehicle. Not in his vehicle. He came to my place, and then even if he had perpetrated an abduction, the abductors would have thought that he would come in his own vehicle. The own vehicle was, or whatever the vehicle he came, was parked somewhere else. So this person came, and why should he come and get himself abducted at a place where there is so much traffic?
Now, had you informed the police that he was coming to see you?
No. What happened was, it is not my duty to inform the police.
But then how would they know that he was coming to see you?
It is simple. My conclusion is, Mr. Bandhavijay Singh contacted me in the morning, and he told me that he is going to bring Mr. Anura Veeravatsa to my place and for him to be surrendered to the CID. So the only person, there are two possibilities. One possibility was that Mr. Anura Veeravatsa knew that he was going to come to my place, right? So there was a possibility that he would, which never occurred to me, he could have got this done. Then the second reason, that if anybody with the present instruments, my understanding that any telephone can be tapped. So therefore, if their telephones were tapped, they would have known that he is coming to my place, and the police knows my place, my residence. And then the appointment was postponed from 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock. And there were at that time, there were a lot of cars parked.
Where?
In front of my house.
Right.
So we naturally presume that they have come to the private nursing home. There's a private, not a private nursing home, consultant service.
But now what do you think?
No, from the knowledge, from the information, that they were waiting. After this call came, several people were there to abduct him. And that is obviously, I believe, it is my conclusion, I don't say the CID would have done this, but there may be some team who had been assigned to arrest him because they are police. Because it is now, what is the purpose of Mr. Anura Veerasinghe abducting himself? He would have disappeared. Now, he would have disappeared. Now, the police say that he went on a boat. He would have gone on a boat to India. Then they said that and various things are being said. So there was my reckoning is that when they came, the police took him to custody, but then there was undue publicity given to the abduction by the media. Then when they came to know, I don't think they would have known Mr. Bandula Vijayasinghe, and they would have not known that he is the secretary of the Bar Association. And when they came to know that Mr. Bandula Vijayasinghe, secretary of the Bar Association, brought this client to my residence and he was abducted from in front of my residence, and the lawyers were protesting, they got cold feet. They thought now there will be like this there will be lawyers out with placards. And
where do you think Mr. Anura Veerasinghe is right now?
I believe, this is only conjecture because you can't go on, but I believe he is in custody of the police, not at a police station, but at a certain private house. Now this is a famous thing with the JBP insurrection. This is not something uncommon. People used to arrest them, and because of the Red Cross and other agencies.
Why can't the police reproduce him and perhaps arrest him?
Yeah, the reason is that now once they have done this, they have to, I believe that there could be these reasons. After taking him custody, they would have mercilessly assaulted him and extra confession. If that was done, he can't be produced. The moment he produced before a court of law, the magistrate will naturally, some lawyer will appear, will want him produced before the JMO. Then the question of this assault and all this will come. Then the second reason is, if the police say that I believe they have committed a serious violation of a fundamental right, and then the lawyers, I believe, will get together and will protest, because this is a situation where a lawyer cannot bring a client to another lawyer. And we have had the occasion, we used to inform the CID or the police officers and say, so and so, we are bringing this client to your house, and there was no problem. We used to go and hand over that person to the police officer, and this has not happened in the recent past. Though this happened in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s.
Mr. Pereira, why do you think the police, if we are to go by the assumption that Mr. Varnakulasuriya was just making, why do you think the police would want to complicate an already very complex case?
Frederica, I have my reservations. I don't want to express any view or opinion as to who did it and why it was done. I would like to keep the whole thing open, because various people do various things for reasons best known to themselves. So whether it was something that was staged by Mr. Veerasinghe himself, I'm not saying, obviously it could well be that the lawyers were also unaware of what was happening, I don't know. It could be that the police had taken him to custody or whatever, or it could be a third party, totally unknown to all of us, who may have abducted him. But all what I can say is this: if, as stated by Mr. Varnakulasuriya, it is the police who had done it, I would say that they have taken a very, very big risk. Because that's something that an average police officer wouldn't dare to do unless...
Even in the present scenario.
Yes, unless there are compelling reasons. So I wouldn't want to infer that it was the police who had taken him to custody. My view is that it could be anyone. I wouldn't want to venture out in expressing any opinion or view. I think one has to keep his mind open. This is fairly, as you quite correctly stated, this is a very complex investigation. It's going to be, and therefore without sort of taking any particular or making any inferences, I think it's much better for us to proceed, keeping an open mind.
Yes.
And
now you were telling me that you personally knew the dead customs officer, or rather the Sujit Pereira.
Yes.
And that you actually represented him in
Yes.
some cases in customs, I believe.
Yes.
Did Sujit at any time intimate to you that his life was under threat?
Not only Sujit, there are several customs officers who have indicated to me that they have been getting threatening calls.
Like who?
I don't want to name them because it might not be fair to name some of those officers, Frederica, but there are certainly at least 5 or 6 officers known to me whose lives were at risk.
And Sujit also.
Sujit
like
was
that it
one
is.
because I might say this. Sujit was a fearless officer who, he knows me very well. I have sometimes gone on before him in connection with my own clients, and he would take a very, very strict view, and he would be very slow in giving a concession. I think he was a very good officer, and I must also say this, I believe he was a little tactless. I have myself warned Sujit on several occasions, including some of the other customs officers, to be careful.
Yeah.
That the way they were handling, because this is a very huge operation, stakes are very high, and today I believe assassinating a man is just another thing. I think the life of a human being today seems to be less valuable than the value of maybe an Alsatian pup. To buy an Alsatian pup, I believe you require minimum 15,000 to 20,000, but I am told that there are people who can be hired for less than that amount to kill a human being. So value that we place on human life seems to be very, very minimal, and stakes are very high. So therefore, I think these threats have been there and will continue to be there. It's very unfortunate. And I must state that there's something else that I would like to tell you, Frederica, at a subsequent point of time. I think it's time that we opened our eyes. There's a serious situation building up in the country where there's an absolute breakdown in law and order. And unless we take stock of this situation and take certain corrective steps at this moment, soon may come the day when even if the government in power honestly and sincerely wants to put things in order, they will not be able to do it, where the underworld would have taken control of the situation.
I'd like to come back to that about the underworld, but before that, Mr. Pereira, did Sujit at any time name to you any particular person who he was perhaps afraid of?
Well, Frederica, he named, but I don't think it's fair for me. Not that he had, I know there were certain officers, there were several cliques within the customs itself that I know. And there are certain individuals I know who were in board and who could have been threats to the lives of some of these customs officers, but only thing, I don't think it's fair for me to name any one of them, because just because he has given me or he has indicated, it may not be fair. Merely on suspicion to name them. But certainly, yes, I knew that there were several.
I'm just curious again here, because the Customs Department, I'm sure you will agree, is the foremost barrier, or should be the foremost barrier to preventing bribery and corruption.
I would say that seems to be the place where corruption is growing. It seems to be the center.
My question to
center.
How corrupt is the Sri Lanka Customs Department today?
I would say it's corruption at the highest possible level. It's falling in the sense. I would put it this way: the way the corruption is going on, I'm sure Honorable the Finance Minister, Her Excellency, is also well aware of this. I think there's absolute corruption in that department, and if that department can be put right, in my view, we could double the revenue that the government gets, and also I think we might be able to bring about a greater degree of efficiency where the industrialists and the commercial world stands to benefit. Because today monies are being extorted by some of these officers.
Customs officers?
Yes.
And are many of them in league with members of the underworld?
I presume so.
Mr. Vijay Singh, now the police say that one businessman by the name of A.D. Priyantha is really not a businessman but actually a member of the underworld and shared a very close relationship with Anura Weerawansa. Now, I subsequently learned that you actually represented Mr. Priyantha, A.D. Priyantha, at a customs inquiry. Is that correct? About 3 years ago.
I may have, but I can't remember. Even if I represent custom, it is not by me. I would have definitely get a service on other senior counsel. You see, not by me, because I don't do custom cases.
So you did not meet Anura Weerawansa through A.D. Priyantha?
No.
because I'm just bringing this case up because the police are right now investigating this particular case where it is alleged that Mr. Anura Weerawansa tried to implicate other customs officers with the connivance of Mr. Edi Priyantha, and it is in that case that you are supposed to have represented Mr. Priyantha.
But I'm not aware of that.
Right.
The connection between Anwar and Priyantha.
I represent some of the customs officers who are also being charged in that case, and Mr. Sujit Pereira's name also transpires, and this gentleman is also, whom you named, is one of the suspects.
Right. In
One of the
this case.
suspects, and I can say this: Mr. Anura Weerawansa wanted to prosecute in that case. I raised objections because I felt that the other customs officers may not get a decent deal at the inquiry. The inquiring officer overruled, and then I had to protest. I walked out of the inquiry, I protested, and I complained to the Director General of Customs, who made a direction that Mr. Anura Weerawansa should be taken out of that inquiry.
Yes, okay. We are going to stop for a short commercial break right now. We'll be back with you in the next few seconds. Don't go away. Welcome back. Right, if I were to now start with you, Chapa, tell me what, as a journalist, I mean you and I are both journalists, what is your assessment of this whole situation? We have here with us today 3 eminent lawyers. We've got a situation where there appears to have been a complete breakdown of law and order in this particular case, where lawyers themselves appear to be helpless, as it were. What do you think, what is the reason for this situation today? And what do you think, if perhaps not people like you and me, but what do you think people like Mr. Varnakula Surya, Mr. Vijay Singha and Mr. Srinath Pereira should be doing in this situation?
Frederica, as usual, I would like to talk in Sinhala also,
yes, of course,
to get the maximum effectiveness of
yes.
this discussion. And at the beginning, I must tell you something. I agree with Srinath to some extent. I am talking of this particular isolated incident. But I doubt Hemantha and Bandula, actually they were tried. You, at the beginning of this discussion, you used some of one of nice words for that. You said this is like a drama. Yes, that is true. It is like a drama. You know why? Now, Bandula says that he can't recognize even one of the people who came to kidnap these Anura Weerawansa at Norris Canal Road. Same time, Hemantha Varnakula Surya, without being there, he says this was done by the police. So at the beginning I doubt this. I have doubt. They can
I believe I must interrupt. I think it's good for Chapa to doubt, because that is I think the whole process of his livelihood is doubting the credibility of everyone he meets. My position, please Chapa wait. My position is, right, he represents a certain thinking and certain group of newspapers who have been doubting very many things. My position is this: Mr. Bandula Vijay Singha. Now, Mr. Bandula Vijay Singha stated that he can't recognize the people who came because it came suddenly. If this happened to Chapa, he wouldn't have been able to, he would not be able to recognize. Wait a minute.
No, but Mr.
My position is that I, as an experienced lawyer, I know whether what was described by Mr. Bandula Vijay Singha, that this operation did not take even few seconds. 2 people came from one side, all similarly built, and they came and held Mr. Bandula Vijay Singha and prevented him from getting down. I signaled to him to lower the winds, lower the the shutters, right? Then the other 3 people came and when Mr. Anura protested, resisted, they dragged him. So Mr. Chapa, he can live on his own world of doubt, because he will continue doubt, because he will doubt about himself also.
No,
I you don't have to agree with me. I don't have to agree with him also. But my position is this. My position, Mr. Frederica.
No, this is my position.
Your position. I told you that you have the freedom to doubt, because the whole very problem is that his existence doubt.
No, but as a lawyer,
without any information.
what is
always-
information I have got information.
made this story.
I have not made the story. This story was happening in my front of my house. What is the
you didn't see
how
that.
do you make the
Just
story?
a minute.
Wait a minute, Mr. Chapa.
Let's listen to him because Mr. Varnakula Surya, as
Yeah.
a lawyer, I'm sure you'll agree that there's always a level of doubt in any incident.
Yeah.
So
I have
given that
I have a level of doubt. I am doubting also.
No,
That
no.
also I have. I
No,
have
no.
reason for that
But
also.
given that level of
because
doubt, let's
there is
listen
a
to
reason.
Chapa.
Because the
Reason.
person was who I mean Mr.
No, but given that level of
Yeah,
doubt, let's
yeah.
first listen to him, then you're free to contradict him.
yes.
Yes, Chapa,
Right,
now go
now-
ahead. Why
now-
do you doubt
Yeah.
what Mr.
First,
Vijay
I will
Singh
tell you
also said?
I will talk of first what he said was, right? As journalists, we have talk of many things about this judicial system also. I would like to show you this last issue of this paper. Frederica, we can't talk of this incident as individual isolated incident, right? You have to understand that. Now, I would like
But
to...
before that, Chapa, can
Yeah.
I ask you, you just said you doubted Mr. Vijay Singh's description of this particular
I
incident.
doubt that.
Why?
Still we are gathering information, so I do not like to make a conclusion of this.
When you say you doubt that
Yeah, I
he-
doubt.
What is it you doubt
know why?
about it?
Reason is now Hemantha Varnakula Surya was not there, right? Where this incident occurred. He is the person who was there with Anura Veeravansa. He says, I can't recognize anybody. Even he can't remember the number of the vehicle even, right?
Do you think that's possible when something happens so fast,
No,
as Mr. Vijay
it
Singh
is
has
not a
said?
problem whether he can't recognize, so he can do that. I mean, that's a different story. The problem is, being in the same house, he didn't see this incident. He makes a story, right?
Mr.
Police
Chapa,
came.
you have not understood my
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
Your whole problem is, you don't understand what I have been saying. I never said I was in the house. This is the problem. You write also like this, without,
Right.
without any meaning.
Wait.
Miss Frederica,
Yes.
what I said is very clear to everyone. When this incident happened, I was...
Where were you?
I will answer Frederica. If this is a problem, you must first of all follow. If you can't understand English,
No, I followed
my position. You are doubting without even following what I say.
No.
Mr. Chapa, first of all, listen and find out what I have to say, and then you doubt. What I said, I never said anything like that. I said, Mr. Chapa, I said when this incident happened, I was in the magistrate's court. Mr. Vijay Singh gave me a call and said that this incident happened. Then immediately I came back to the place of to my residence. And now he completely understood because the problem is if you can't understand English, then I can speak in singular. My position is
When this happened, he was not there. That's
correct.
so that is the position. Yeah.
I was being there. How can you make this story?
Mr.
Then no doubt
Chapa,
about
I
that.
don't have to be there. I don't have to be
You
there.
doubt.
There absolutely
You have
no
a
doubt.
doubt.
I have no doubt. I am only going on the basis what I told by Mr. Bandulu Vijay Singh, whose credibility I respect, who the Secretary of Bar Association, and he has no credibility. That is what my position. My position. Frederica, my position is this. Mr. Bandulu Vijay Singh informed me that this happened. Immediately I came and I saw the demeanor. Now Mr. Srinath Pera will know, even in crossing a witness, how the witness reacts. He was in utterly dazed. And if we thought that this abduction was done by Andhra Veeravansa, why should we go and take all the immediately what I did was?
Hemant, I don't think he is making an allegation against either you or Bandul. I don't think he is saying
about
that
the incident.
you are a party to anything.
That's
That's all.
the-
But I think
that's
what he wants to say is that there is a doubt as to who did. I mean,
That's
Yeah, that
I
is,
mean,
I am for a moment, Frederica, I said that there are two versions. One version is the version given by the police.
But you
One
only
version,
believe worst
I believe on the facts and the circumstances that has been given publicity in the media. Now, for instance, the Daily Mirror carried a news story in the front page stating that they have got information from an undisclosed police source that this man is in police custody and that he is kept in a separate place. Now up to now, there has been no denial. I have not seen a denial from the police.
No,
Now-
I have to say here, Mr. Varnakula Surya, that the CID officer handling this investigation,
Yeah.
Mr. Pratapa Singh,
Yeah.
did tell me only yesterday that Mr. Veeravansa is not in police custody.
So Mr. Pratapa Singh has been, in fact the Daily Mirror did not say that he is in police custody. He said he is in custody of the police but not kept at the police station. In fact, if we knew that he was at some place, we would file, Mr. Srinathara would know that we would make certain suggestions and do certain things even if we don't have, the other problem, we don't have instructions because there is no one who is known to me, them is available. But I will tell you that when you take the entire episode and now the police say,
We'll take a short break. We'll be back with you in a few minutes. Don't go away.
Later, she told me more about Gatsby's past. He was a penniless young man who'd made it into Daisy's house and her life.
Nonsense. Well, I certainly am awfully glad to see you again.
Green light that shines all night at the end of your dog. He was running down like an overwhelmed clock.
I can't say I never loved him.
Bonlek non-fat ජීවිතය වඩා සැපවත් කරයි.
यार साइकिल इधर ब्रेक नहीं तो उम्बर तो ब्रेक नहीं
Nona, the police करता है.
याको तो पिला तानो कोले पेट्टो वाला ने थीन दिए कथा करने थीन दिए खाने बोलने थीन दिए तो पिला तीन हिंदी हाजिर नहीं
नहीं.
तुमसे अच्छा आसे काका
नहीं.
प्यारी का है गाहे बोल गाहे
नहीं, नहीं.
සාජන් 999 ඔබ වෙත ගෙනෙන්නේ සීමා සහිත ෂෝවල සැන්හෙජර්ස් සාදර අනුග්‍රහයෙන්.
සර් අපේ තාත්තට ලොකු වැඩක් තිබුණා.
මගේ දුව ක්‍රීඩාවට හරි දක්ෂයි. හැඩරුව ගැනත් හොඳ සැලකිල්ලක් තියෙනවා. එයා තමයි මටත් බොන්ලැක් කිරි පාවිච්චි පුරුදු කළේ. බොන්ලැක් මේද රහිත කිරි ශක්තිය ලබා දෙයි. තරබාරු වීම අඩු කරයි. ශරීරයේ සැහැල්ලුවක් ඇති කරයි.
දැන් මගේ දුවට වගේම තාත්තටත් බොන්ලැක් නැතුවම බෑ. මේද නැති නිසා අපි කාටත් හොඳයි.
බොන්ලැක් non fat ජීවිතය වඩා සැපවත් කරයි.
Welcome back. Right, as you can see, this is why Crosstalk decided to focus on this issue today. If you've been with us and you've been listening to Mr. Varnakula Surya, Mr. Chapa Bandara, Mr. Bandura Vijayasinghe and Mr. Srinath Perera, there is a lot of conflicting views and opinions on this issue, particularly on the, as I said, the alleged abduction or disappearance, he's definitely disappeared, of Mr. Anura Veeravansa, the customs officer. Now, we will go back to Mr. Varnakula Surya. Yes, you were saying, Mr. Varnakula Surya.
Yeah, my position is that Mr. Chapa Bandara said he has a doubt.
Yeah, I have a doubt.
No, you have a doubt. I mean, you're free to doubt. Everybody, I mean, Socrates doubted everything. That is, so and also some idiots also doubt.
Then I will tell you why I doubt.
My position.
Only thing is he doesn't allow me to talk.
No, my position is very clear.
I will come back to you, Chapa.
I was told by Mr. Bandula Vijayasinghe what happened. I now go on the basis of what happened afterwards. When I spoke to the DIG, Mr. Punya Desil, of course that is excusable. He was at a meeting. Then I spoke to Mr. Samaratunga. Nothing happened. He said he'll come back in 1 hour. Then I spoke to the emergency. Now, if Mr. Veeravansa has staged this, and I remember listening to the name of the police officer, Mr. Adhikari. I thought within 5 minutes, the whole place will be full of cars, at least 1 or 2 cars, would come and inquire. Nothing happened. Then we were waiting and we didn't know what to do because because Mr. Veeravansa has said that told Mr. Vijayasinghe told me that he wants to go with a lawyer because he is frightened that the police might kill him.
But
So, now wait a minute. So, therefore, Frederica, when this happened, the action of the police, then we have to on our own. Now, no one told us to go and make a statement at the police station. Now,
But Mr. Varnakula Surya, I have to interrupt you there. Aren't the police normally lackadaisical? I mean, even normally when a
they are
complaint
very,
is made,
very lackadaisical.
they are very
They are
lackadaisical.
lackadaisical. But then also, you must understand, when the police is in operation, when they do an operation, they informed. Now, if they want to take Anura Veeravansa from my place, they would have informed Mardana police, there's an operation, be lackadaisical. But this has happened because there has been many incidents where when whatever the government is in power, when they do an operation, no one knows. I mean, there has been instances where in the height of the security situation, where people have been roaming with arms in their vehicles, bombs, no one has checked. You know, so therefore, then can you doubt the story? Then what happened when we went to the police station? Now, this is something that normally we did not know, because I came to the conclusion this has been taken by the police. In fact, I thought, what's the point in making a statement also? But then when we decided to, because in order of the safety of my client, at that time I never thought that there will be, you know, that anyone would doubt Mr. Vijay Singha's statement. Yes. We went to the police station there also. What happened? The police were...
So the police also doubted Mr. Vijay Singha?
Not that they doubted, they never doubted. They never doubted.
But the Maradana police did
later,
one time say later that the incident never happened.
That what happened? When Mr. Vijay Singha made the statement, with difficulty we got the OIC to come, then I thought now he would immediately go to the spot. Instead of which he said, Mr. Vijay Singha, can you get down your vehicle? So check the fingerprints. I thought, now this is a very serious matter. Yes. Forget about the abduction, forget about disappearance. This man is the prime suspect in a murder case. Right. I thought they would run to the place and they do investigation. They never did anything.
Right. So Chapa, okay. Now in that context,
Fredrika, I do not like to talk of this isolated incident, and also I do not agree with Hemant and also Bandula. There is a reason, and but I do not like to waste time on this, because he will attack again and he will tell that.
No, but they are all I mean, obliged. They
it is better
have a right to hear their opinions on this particular case.
Yeah. Now we can talk of this incident, but let time decide. බොහොම ඉක්මනටම මේ කියන කතාව නාට්‍යයක්ද නැද්ද කියන කාරණේ එළි වෙවි. සමහර විට මේ කියන වැඩසටහනේදීම ක්‍රොස් ටෝක් වැඩසටහනේදීම අපිට කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් වේවි. ඒ නිසා මම හදිස්සි වෙන්නේ නැහැ මේ සිද්ධිය ගැන කතා කරන්න. දැන් හේමන්තගේ කාරණා තුල තිබුණේ දැඩි ද්වේෂයක් මම දැක්කේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මට සැක කරන්න අයිතියක් තියෙනවා. ඒ සැක කරන්නේ නිකන් නෙවෙයි. ওই නොරිස් කැනල් පාරේ අපි ඇවිද්ද ඔය කාරණා හොයන්න. අපි සාක්ෂි හෙව්වා. අපි හදිස්සි වෙන්නේ නැහැ තීන්දුවක් දෙන්න. අපි පොලිසිය දැඩි ලෙස විවේචනය කරනවා. පොලිසිය පිළිබඳ මගේ දැවැන්ත විවේචනයක් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි සියලුම දේ පොලිසියට දාලා නිහඬ වෙන්න තරම් මම මෝඩෙක් නෙවෙයි. දැන් අර හේමන්තගේ වචනෙන් කියනවා ඉඩියට් කියන වචන ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් පාවිච්චි කරුවේ එහෙම කෙනෙක් නෙවෙයි. මම ඊතර හදිස්සි වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අනිත් එක තමයි මේ සිද්ධිය පිළිබඳව සැක කරන්න පුළුවන් කාරණා ගණනාවක් අපි ඉදිරියේ තියෙනවා. අපි කතා කරන්නේ මේ සිද්ධිය ගැන මොනම පරිච්ඡේදයකද ෆෙට්‍රිකා. මේ බලන්න මම රාවේ මුල් පිටුවට එන කැමති ගිසතිය පේරාදෙනිය ඝාතන සිද්ධියෙන් හෙළිවේ අග විනිසුරුට පාතාල සබඳකම්. මම මේකයි කිව්වේ මේ සිද්ධිය සම්බන්ධයෙන් හුදකලාවේ කතා කරන්න මම ලෑස්ති නෑ. මේ සුජිත් පෙරේරා කියන චරිතය හුදකලාවේ පාරක මැරුණා කියන තැනට මම එන්නේ නෑ. මම එන්නේ මේ රටේ අපි කතා කරන බිඳ වැටිච්ච ජනතා විරෝධී නීතිමය රාමුවක් තුල මේ සිද්ධිය ගැන අපි කතා කරන්නේ. දූෂණවලට, වංචාවලට, අපරාධවලට ඉඩ දෙන පරිසරයක් තුල මේ ගැන කතා කරන්නේ. සුජිත්ගේ සිද්ධිය මරදාන පොලිසිය CID එක පුණ්‍යඩි සිල්වා කියන කාරණා මේ සමස්ත ක්‍රියාවලියේ හුදකලා අංශු මාත්‍ර පමණයි. මේ සිද්ධියෙන් පැහැදිලිවම කියවෙන්නේ අගවිනිසුරුවරයා ළඟ වැඩ කරපු රෝහණ කුමාර කියන පුද්ගලයා, ඔහුගේ නිල නිවාසයේ බාර හිටපු පුද්ගලයා කොහොමද පේරාදෙනි මල්වත්තේ සිද්ධ වෙච්ච මිනිමරුම සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ, ඔවුන් අතර සිද්ධ වෙන දුරකථන සංවාද, ඒත් එක්කම ජයම්පති වික්‍රමරත්න කියන නීතිඥවරයා කොහොමද ඒකට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ, මේ නිකන් මේ පුවත්පතේ තියෙනවා එකින් එකට ඒ දුරකථන බිල් මගින් ඔවුන් සම්බන්ධ වෙන ආකාරය පදනම් සහිතව. ඊළඟට ගැස්ටන් ජයකොඩි කියන නීතිඥවරයා මේ වංචනික අත්සන් යොදා කොහොමද ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණය නොමග යවන්නේ, ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයට වංචනික අත්සන් යොදා මූලික අයිතිවාසිකම් ප්‍රතිසමක් ඉදිරිපත් කරද්දී ඒ හෙළිවෙද්දී අගවිනිසුරුවරයා ඒ ආවරණය කරන ආකාරය මේ කතා කරන්නේ මේ රටේ ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණය ගැන. එතකොට පොලිසියට මේ සියලු කුණු ගොඩවල් ගහලා අපිට නිහඬ වෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? පළවෙනි ප්‍රශ්නේ. දැන් ඇතැම් නීතිඥවරු කරන කාරණා පිළිබඳව අපි මොනවද කතා කරන්නේ? එතකොට තමයි මම කිව්වේ මම අර කලින් කියපු කාරණා කිසිදු හේතුවක්
නැත්නම් නීතිඥ ගැන කතා කරන්න පුළුවන්. පාට කෙනෙක්ට ඇඟිල්ල දික් කරලා කියන්න බෑ මේ නීතිඥ මෙහෙමයි කියලා.
පුළුවන් පැහැදිලිවම.
ඇතැම් කියන්න
මම සිංහෙන් කතා කරන්නේ දැන් චාපා කියනවා. දැන් චාපා නීතිඥ මහත්තුරුන් දෙන්නව නම් සඳහන් කරා.
පැහැදිලිවම කරා.
විතරක් නෙමෙයි මේක ජනාධිපති නීතිඥ කෙනෙක්. ගැස්ටන් ජයකොඩි මහත්තයා නීතිවරයෙක් මම අඳුරනවා. දැන් මේගොල්ලන්ට විරුද්ධව මේ වගේ දෙයක් මෙතන කතා කරලා මම හිතා හරිම අසාධාරණයක් නෝ ඒ නීතිඥ මහත්තුරුන්ට. මොකද එහෙමනම් ෆ්‍රෙඩ්‍රිකා ඔබතුමිය වෙනත් දවසක මේක සාකච්ඡා දාලා ගැස්ටන් ජයකොඩි මහත්තයාට කතා කරන්න. ඒ මහත්මයා එනවා නම් එහෙම නැත්නම් කවුද මේ ජයම්පති වික්‍රමරත්න මහත්මයායි ඒ මහත්තයාලා කතා කරන්නේ. මේකේ තියෙන එක පැත්ත මේ මම මේ රාවය පත්තරේ ගැන විවේචනයේ මම කියන්නේ මේ දැන් අද බලන්න මේ මාධ්‍ය ගැන වුණත් මාධ්‍යත් මේකට හවුල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. මම නැහැ කියන්නේ. මම දැන් තමා මේ නීතිඥවරු දෙදෙනෙකුට විශේෂම ඇඟිලි දෙක කරා. ඇඟිලි දෙක කරනවා කියන්නේ මේ පුවත්පත පබ්ලික් ડોකියුමන්ට් එකක්.
I think what Chapa is also trying to say is that there, I don't know, it's just that incident also.
Part of this, for us to come and discuss individual lawyers. Police.
But what he's trying to say
Mr.
also.
Chapa, I told Frederica to get any police officer. I am prepared to talk to any police officer. And they have not come. That is not my fault.
Yes,
Mr.
at
Chapa.
this point, I think we should tell our
But there is
viewers
no
that
police officer here.
Chapa
That is not my fault. I have told her, get the police officer, get Mr. Prathapan, get the DIG. My fault. My position, you can make an allegation against two lawyers, against two lawyers in this profession.
No, it is in paper. Right, all these details and these names in this
paper. If the allegations in the paper, the allegations will be, they have to meet the, but then the public discussion, millions of people are watching, and it's very unfair because
No, Mr. Varnapala, sorry, I think he brought it as an example, and also even this Sujit's case and all. What he's trying to say, I believe, is that there's a, as I said in my introduction also, there's a total breakdown of law and order. What has happened to the structure? Even you are, as a lawyer, I mean, this horrifying incident happened outside your house. You seem to be helpless in this whole situation. Where does that leave people like us?
That is right. We are prepared to discuss the total breakdown of law and order, but then we must not make allegations against lawyers are not present. If you are prepared to be, but I say
but
that.
Is this why the structure has collapsed?
That is a matter. My position is that allegations against individuals. He is the secretary of the Bar Association, and I am also a lawyer. So if he makes allegations against someone.
But you make allegation against the police.
I am definitely I am making allegations against the police.
So in the same way, I make this allegation.
I have never made allegations against a particular officer because that is unfair. I say this is the operation by the police. That is my conviction, and I have told you for this program get a police officer, and you have to tell the public.
At this point, I think we should tell our viewers we did invite the police, but unfortunately we could not get a working police officer nor a retired police officer to be present at this discussion. Right now, having said that,
තියෙන මේ රටේ මේ අපි මේ කරන්නේ විහිළු වැඩසටහනක් නෙවෙයිනේ. කවුරුත් හිනස් විහිළු වැඩසටහනක් නෙවෙයි. අපි කතා කරන්නේ මේ රටේ දූෂිත නීති සම්බන්ධයෙන්. ඔහු පව ආරක්ෂා කරන මේ රටේ දූෂිත නීති සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපි කතා කරන්නේ. සුජිත් පෙරේරා මහනුවර පාරේ මැරුවේ කවුද මරණය පිටිපස්සේ ඉන්න කියන කාරණේ මම කියන්නේ මෙතනදී අපිට කතා කරන්න අවශ්‍ය කාරණයක් නෙවෙයි. කතා කරන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ මේ සියල්ලට අවශ්‍ය පසුබිම සකස් කරේ කවුද? ඒ පසුබිම ආරක්ෂා කරන්නේ කොහොමද?
Yes, I think as I said that this whole structure has collapsed.
මම පවා ආරක්ෂා කර දූෂිත තත්ත්වයක් ගැන කතා කරන්නේ. මම හිතන්නේ මම කිසිම දූෂිතයක ආරක්ෂා කරා කියලා. මම කරන්නේ නීතිඥවරයෙක් වශයෙන්. මම ඔබට පිළිතුරු දෙන්නම්. මම කියන්නේ මගේ ගැනවත් මේක මේ චාපගේ ගැනවත් රාපේ වතන මම කතා කරන්නේ. මම කතා කරන්නේ අපි කතා කරන්න ආවේ මේක සිද්ධිය සම්බන්ධයෙන්. එතකොට මේ සිද්ධිය සම්බන්ධයෙන් මුළු සමස්ත ක්‍රියාදාමයේ මේ මුළු සමස්ත මේ නීතිය කඩාබිඳ වැටී තිබෙනවා. ඒක වෙනම ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඒක සම්බන්ධයෙන් මම කියා සිටින්නේ මේකයි. මම පෞද්ගලිකව කිසිම කෙනෙකුට මෙතන නැති උත්තර දෙන්න බැරි කෙනෙකුට ඇඟිල්ල දක්වලා කතා කිරීම ඉතාම අසාධාරණයි. මොකද උන්ට මෙතන එන උත්තර දෙන්න බෑ. එසේනම් මම ඔබතුමියගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඒ නීතිඥ මහතුරු හෝ නීති සංගමයේ හෝ කවුරු දෙන්න කතා කරන්න. නමුත් මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් මේ රාවය පත්‍රයේ තිබුණා රාවය පත්‍රයේ තියෙන දේව වාක්‍ය නෙවෙයි. ඒ රාවය පත්‍රයේ තියෙන දේවල් ඕන තරම් වැරදි වෙලා තිනවා. ඔබ රාවයට චෝදනා කරන නිසා මම කියන්නම් ඔබ ඉතා පැහැදිලිව. ඔබට මෙච්චර මේ කාරණේ රිදෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා මම කියන්නම්. නෑ මට රිදෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. මම කියන්න පෞද්ගලිකව අගවිනිසුරුවරයාගේ නෑ ෆ්‍රෙඩරිකා මොකද මේ ජනතාව බලාගෙන ඉන්නවනේ මේ වැඩසටහන ඔබ ප්‍රචාරය කරන්නේ නැත්නම් කමක් නැහැ. අපි සන්තෝෂයෙන් යන්. නමුත් මේ වැඩසටහන මේ රටේ ජනතාවට පෙන්නනවා නම් වගකීමක්. අපි මේ වෙනින් පෙනී හිටන අය
කතා කරනකොට වගකීමෙන් කතා කරනවා.
වගකීමෙන් කතා කරන්නේ
මම සූදානම් නැහැ මෙතෙන්ට ඇවිල්ලා එක එක්කෙනාගෙන් මගේ මේ චරිත සාතිකයක් අරගන්න. මම ආවේක නෙමෙයි මෙතෙන්ට. මම ආවේක නෙමෙයි. ඔයත් වගකීමෙන් කතා කරන්න.
මම ඊට වගකීමෙන් කියනවා මම කතා කරපු සිද්ධිය සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඊට පැහැදිලි තොරතුරු මගේ ළඟ තියෙනවා. මේ පත්තරේ පළ කරලා තියෙනවා. මේ ඔවුන්ගේ ව්‍යාජත්සන් සහිත ලිපි
මගේ සම්බන්ධ නැහැ මොකක්වත්.
ඉතින් ඔබ ඒකට කතා කරන්නේ. මම කතා කරන්නේ මේ රටේ
අනිත් ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ පදනම අරගෙන ඔයා කියන්න හදන්නේ මාප්‍ය තත්ත්වය කියලා.
මම කතා කරන්නේ ඔබ ඒ තොප්පිය දාගත්තා. මම කතා කරන්නේ මේ රටේ නීති ව්‍යුහය සම්බන්ධයෙන්. ඔබ කතා කරපු විදිහට මේ රටේ නීතිය කඩාවැටලා තියෙන විදිහ සුජිත්ව මරා දැමීමේ පාරේ ඒ පරීක්ෂණ පිළිබඳව මේ නොමගැවීම් සියල්ල සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ ඇයි මේ?
Yeah. Now we'll come back to that. That's a good question. That is what we are going to finally come to. Before that, Mr. Vijay Singha, I think I already asked you that you apparently represented this A.D. Priyantha, who is an underworld character.
I may have.
Right. Now, when you did, can you remember the
I
name?
don't know whether it's fair to say he's an underworld character.
According to the police.
I don't think you should.
No, according to the police maintain that he is an underworld character, that he is also on the run right now. He cannot be found. Okay. Now, this Priyantha, when you met with him, I don't know if you can remember.
Yeah.
What was he? Was he a businessman? Did he have a profession?
No, I can't remember that unless I go through my file.
Right. I'm asking
This
you.
is about, I think, maybe about 5-6 years back.
No, in 1998.
No, I can't remember. In detail, I can't remember.
I'm just
because
asking you.
Normally, what we do is, I am being an instructing attorney. When a client comes, what I do is, we will get. There are various areas, in the sense criminal, civil, custom. So what we do is, we refer that client to the senior counsel. So from there onwards, the counsel take over the case.
Right. No, I'm only asking you because, as I said, his name has figured now in this investigation into the murder of Sujit Perera.
I can't remember.
There is an allegation that he and Anura Veeravansa shared a very close relationship, and that together they connived I don't know about Sujit Perera's murder, but also to implicate other customs officers. Mr. Perera, are you aware of those facts?
I have reason to believe that there was something to that effect. I have reason to believe.
So where does this
Of course, I must say that since I am representing some of the interested customs officers, maybe I am expressing a biased view. Maybe.
Right.
But notwithstanding that, that's my view.
So where do we go from here, Mr. Perera?
Frederica.
As I was just saying, Mr. Varnakulasuri and both Mr. Vijay Singha, their hands too appear to be tied. What do you do in a situation like this?
Are you asking about the general situation?
In this particular, if we were to start with this case, and then yes, we can generalize.
Well, I would rather generalize it, Frederica, if you permit me. I don't think the fault is either with the law or any other agency, but I think the basic fault is with the politicization of these governmental organizations. To name some of them, the public service and especially the police. I think this has happened over a long period of time under both regimes, the United National Party and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. And we find that today there is the underworld and the politicians are working hand in hand, each group depending on the other for their survival. And as a result, we find that a situation has been created today where the underworld is being protected by the politicians, both in the government and in the opposition, and the politicians being protected by the underworld. And this symbiosis seems to be growing. And I believe as a result you find that we have created a situation in relation to the police where they are not permitted to do what they are expected to do. If any crime is committed, you find there is a person connected to the underworld, and behind that there is a politician, and the moment an independent police officer tries to do his job of work, you find all sorts of obstacles being put in his way. Either he will be transferred to the war-torn areas where he has to run the risk of losing his life, or else he is not given his promotions or transferred. In fact, it's the other day that I read in the papers that the son of the Inspector General of Police himself is being transferred from one station to another. So if that is the plight of the IGP's son, we can just imagine the plight of the other police officers. And don't forget, Frederica, I as a public servant, I worked as a public servant for 23 years and I was able to do it fearlessly for the reason that I knew that if any person tried to push me too much, or if the maximum they could have done was to kick me out, and that would have been a blessing to me because I could have walked into the private bar and earn my living and earn much more than what I was earning as a public servant. But a police officer, if he is thrown out of his job, that is the beginning and the end for that officer. And therefore, I find that today we have created through this politicization a system where the police officer is not permitted to do his job. And as a result, I believe, I trust Frederica, that there are enough and more good police officers within the system who are willing to do a job of work provided they are given the opportunity. And today, due to this politicization, you find it's fast becoming a situation where the police officers are restricted in doing their job. And as a result, I believe that's one of the contributing factors which is contributing
to the breakdown in the law and order in the country, and I would like to just carry one message across to the public. That is, it's still not too late in the day if the government in power sincerely wants to, where it can bring the underworld under control. I don't think the government in power today nor the United National Party is genuinely interested in doing that. But if they want to, I think even today they can do it. But if they don't do it, very soon will come the day when even if a genuine leader attempts to bring it under control, he will find it almost impossible.
So, in that context, Mr. Perera, do you think that the murder of Mr. Sujith Perera will be just one more unsolved murder?
It's just another one in a chain, and the situation becomes very, very serious because a public officer who, as I told you, he was a little bit tactless, I believe, but he was a fearless officer, and he had to pay for the job that he was doing with his life. As to who the killer is, I don't know. That's not something where I would want to express any views. I suppose at the end of the investigations he may be found or may not be found. But what I say is, this is one of a series of incidents that are going on, and very soon will come the day, I feel, very soon will come the day, like in some of these Latin American countries where a judge might find it difficult to give an order and get back to his house where he might be on the way assassinated. And that's the day that I think all of us will have to look up and cry.
Right. With that, we're going to take another short break. We'll be back with you in another minute. Don't go away.
විනාකිරි රටපුරා කෑම හදන හැම දෙනාගේම තේරීම රෝස්ටර් කෘත්‍රිම සහ පොල් විනාකිරි අලවිය සීමා සහිත ෂෝවලර්ස් ඇන්ඩ් හේජස්.
අයියෝ බ්‍රේක් නෑ යාඩෝ සයිකල් එකේ බ්‍රේක් නැත්නම් උඹට බ්‍රේක් නැත්
නෝනා ද පොලිස් කරතා හේ
යකෝ තොපිල තනකොළ පෙත්ත වල්ලන්නේ හින්දියේ කතා කරන්නේ හින්දියේ කන්නේ බොන්නේ හින්දියෙන්ද තොපිලට තියෙන හින්දිය අජීර්ණයක්නේ
नहीं
तुमसे अच्छा आसे काका
नहीं
प्यारिका है गहे बोल गहे
नहीं नहीं
සාජන් 999 ඔබ වෙත ගෙනෙන්නේ සීමා සහිත ෂෝවලර්ස් ඇන්ඩ් හෙජස් සාදර අනුග්‍රහයෙන්.
Later, she told me more about Gatsby's past. He was a penniless young man who'd made it into Daisy's house and her life.
Well, I certainly am awfully glad to see you again.
Green light that shines all night at the end of your dock.
He was running down like an overwhelmed clock.
I can't say I never loved him.
Bonnet non-fat ජීවිතය වඩා සැපවත් කරයි.
හුත් එක්ක, රතන එක්ක, චාරු එක්ක, පුරචාරු එක්ක. ඕවා තාත්තේ ඕවා පුරාණ රජවරුන්ගේ නාම්නේ.
නිමක් නැති සිනහ සුනිල් ශ්‍රී නාට්‍ය නිර්මාණ තොත්ව බබාලා අනංගයා මගේ ළඟට එන්න හොයා අනංගයා මගේ ළඟට එන්න හොයා
පුංචි අම්මගේ මහත්තයා ඔයගලෙන් ගෙදර නෙමෙයි ඉන්නේ
පුංචි අම්මගේ මහත්තයත් අපේ තාත්තම තමයි
මේ පස්වෙනිදා සවස් 3:30ට සහ 6:30ට ටවු රංගහලේදී
අපේ මාස්ටර් SMS මිනිහෙක් නෙමෙයි MBBS කාරේ
MBBS කියන්නේ මොකක්ද
ඒකවත් දන්නේ MBBS කියන්නේ මේසන් බාස්ටර් බදාම සපයන්න
තොත්ව බබාලා තීන්‍යල් සුබ සාධක සංගමයට ආධාර පිණිස මේ පස්වෙනිදා සවස් 3:30ට සහ 6:30ට ටවු රංගහලේදී ටිකට්ස් සෙන්කඩ සිටි සෑම්ස් දුගේගොඩ සහ එදින රංගහල් දොරටු
මෝදු වෙරළේ ස්ත්‍රී ලිංග පුරුෂ ලිංග අතින් අල්ලගෙන ඇවිදිති
3 attractive fixed return plans over 5 years. A gem of an investment. Ceylon Debentures. Get the best out of this rare investment opportunity. Application from your nearest Ceylon bank.